The 3 moons of Lumaria cast pale blue shadows across the crystal spires of New Haven, the last stronghold of the Lumari people. Ambassador Trell stood at the observation deck, his slender fingers trembling as he watched the dark shapes of Void Dominion warships blot out the stars. His silver skin reflected the emergency lights that pulsed throughout the command center. "How many ships now?" Trell asked, his voice barely audible over the hum of the city's failing shields. Officer Venn looked up from the monitoring station, 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of extreme distress among their kind. 87 vessels have entered our outer atmosphere, Ambassador. Their energy signatures suggest they've brought planet crackers this time. Trell closed his eyes. The Lumari had always been peaceful explorers and scholars. In their 1,000 years of space travel, they had never developed weapons beyond what was necessary to deflect asteroids or dangerous space debris. Their philosophy centered on knowledge and harmony, values that meant nothing to the Void Dominion. "How many civilians remain in the evacuation zones?" Trell asked. "Nearly 3 million, replied Venn. "The transport ships can only hold a few, 1,000 each, and the Dominion has blockaded all major departure lanes." The harsh reality settled over the room like a physical weight. The Lumari civilization, with its 7,000 years of art, science, and philosophy, faced extinction within days, perhaps hours. "Ambassador," called a voice from the far side of the command center. It was Mira, the head archivist, rushing toward them with an ancient device clutched in her hands. The object glowed with a faint green light that pulsed like a heartbeat. "I found something in the deep archives," she said, breathless from her run through the emergency corridors. "A beacon left by the Old Ones." The Old Ones were the mysterious precursors who had visited Lumaria millennia ago, leaving behind fragments of advanced technology that the Lumari had spent generations studying. Most of their artifacts were beautiful but indecipherable. Maps to places beyond reach, or tools whose purpose had been lost to time. "What does it do?" Trell asked, taking the device carefully. It was warm to the touch, as if alive. "It's a distress beacon," Mira explained, pointing to symbols etched into its crystalline surface. "According to the translation matrix, it sends a signal to—" She hesitated. "To what the Old Ones called the Protected Ones." "Protected by whom?" Officer Venn asked. Mira shook her head. "The text only says they evolved on a world of death, yet carry the spark of life. The Old Ones marked their coordinates but added a warning. Call upon them only in darkest hour, for they bring both salvation and terror." A thunderous boom shook the command center, causing the lights to flicker. Outside, one of the shield generators had been hit, its protective dome collapsing in a shower of energy. "I believe we have reached our darkest hour," Trell said grimly. He studied the device, finding a simple activation mechanism. "How does it work?" "Press the center crystal and speak your plea," Mira said. "The beacon translates and amplifies the message across vast distances, supposedly reaching directly to this protected world." Trell hesitated only briefly. Whatever risk this beacon presented, it couldn't be worse than certain extinction. He pressed the crystal, which flared brilliantly under his touch. "This is Ambassador Trell of the Lumari Confederation," he spoke clearly despite his fear. "Our civilization faces extinction at the hands of the Void Dominion. We are a peaceful people with no means to defend ourselves. If anyone can hear this message, we beg for assistance. We have much to offer in exchange. Knowledge, resources, friendship. Please. We have hours, not days." The beacon pulsed 3 times, each flash brighter than the last, then projected a holographic map of the galaxy. A thin beam of light shot from their location toward a spiral arm far from any known civilized world. "Message sent," Mira whispered. "Now we wait." They didn't have to wait long for a response, though not the one they hoped for. The command center's communication system crackled to life with an incoming transmission from the Void Dominion flagship. Harsh face filled the main screen. Commander Drax of the Void Dominion. His scaled skin was the color of oil, and his eyes glowed with an unnatural red light that was the mark of extensive cybernetic enhancement. "Ambassador Trell." The commander's voice grated like metal on stone. Your delaying tactics have grown tiresome. We have detected an unusual energy signature from your command center. Whatever weapon you think you've activated will not save you. Trell stood straight, summoning dignity despite his fear. We have activated no weapon, Commander. The Lumari do not believe in such things, as you well know. Drax's mouth twisted into what passed for a smile among his kind. Then you are even more foolish than we thought. Your philosophy of peace ends today. You have 6 hours to surrender your population for processing and your world for harvesting. After that, we will take what we want from the ashes. The screen went dark. Processing, Ven whispered, the word hanging in the air like poison. Everyone knew what that meant. The Void Dominion didn't just conquer, they consumed. Their biotechnology allowed them to extract useful genetic material from subjugated species, incorporating desirable traits into their own hybrid soldiers. Trell turned back to the window, watching as more Dominion ships descended through the clouds. Begin the evacuation of the deep shelters, he ordered. Prioritize the children and our genetic archives. If this beacon brings no help, at least some trace of our people must survive. As the command center erupted into activity, Trell remained at the window, the beacon still warm in his hands. The device continued to pulse gently, sending their desperate plea across the stars to coordinates unknown. What he couldn't see, what no one in the galaxy could yet detect, was the response already racing toward them. In a distant system classified in ancient galactic records as Extreme Deathworld, approach with caution, the beacon's message had reached its destination. On Earth, alarm systems were already blaring. The Deathworlders were coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Jack Stone was eating an apple when the alert came through. The crisp fruit, grown in the hydroponics bay of Earth's orbital defense station, was a small luxury he allowed himself during his morning briefing. The sharp tone of the emergency alert made him pause mid-bite. Sir, Lieutenant Diaz's voice came through the comm system. You need to see this immediately. Stone tossed the apple core into a recycling chute and straightened his uniform jacket. At 53, he carried himself with the confidence of a man who had seen humanity's first stumbling steps into the greater galaxy. The gray at his temples and the lines around his eyes spoke of decades of service to the United Earth Defense Fleet. On my way, he replied, already moving toward the command center. The station's corridors hummed with activity as he passed. Personnel moved with purpose, rather than panic, a good sign. Whatever the alert was, it hadn't triggered full emergency protocols. Yet. The command center doors slid open, revealing a circular room dominated by a holographic display of nearby space. Lieutenant Diaz stood by the central console, her dark eyes fixed on a pulsing signal that didn't match any known pattern. Report, Stone said, moving to her side. Sir, the deep space array picked this up 20 minutes ago. It's not on any frequency we use, and the translation matrix is still processing parts of it, but she tapped a control and a voice filled the room. The words were clear despite an odd musical quality to the speech. This is Ambassador Trell of the Lumari Confederation. Our civilization faces extinction at the hands of the Void Dominion. We are a peaceful people with no means to defend ourselves. If anyone can hear this message, we beg for assistance. Stone listened to the full message, his expression hardening as the desperate plea continued. Location? He asked when it finished. Diaz brought up a star chart. Here, sir. About 40 light-years from the edge of explored space. The signal came through some kind of amplification technology we've never seen before. It shouldn't have reached us at all, not across that distance. Stone studied the coordinates. And we know nothing about either of these species? Almost nothing, sir, said Commander Wells, the station's xenobiologist, approaching with a data tablet. The beacon contained basic information about both civilizations. The Lumari appear to be a peaceful, technologically advanced species. The Void Dominion is described as an aggressive collective that consumes other species, literally and figuratively. Stone's jaw tightened. Humanity had only developed faster than light travel 15 years ago, and their explorations had been cautious. They had encountered abandoned outposts and ancient ruins, but no living alien civilizations. The prevailing theory was that Earth's high gravity, extreme weather patterns, and dangerous wildlife had produced humans uniquely suited to survive conditions that would kill most other intelligent life. They sent this message specifically to Earth, Diaz added. The signal was targeted directly at our solar system, not broadcast widely. How would they even know about us? Stone asked. Wells scrolled through the data. According to this, they didn't send it. They activated some kind of ancient device left by a precursor species. The message says these precursors identified Earth as a protected world, inhabited by beings evolved in a world of death. A heavy silence fell over the command center. Deathworlders, Stone said finally. They're calling us Deathworlders. It wasn't the first time they'd encountered the term. Archaeological expeditions had found references to Earth as an extreme death world in the ruins of an abandoned monitoring station on Mars. The discovery had been both troubling and oddly prideful for humanity. The idea that ancient aliens had considered them too dangerous to contact. Sir, Diaz said, what are your orders? Stone looked around the command center at the faces of his crew. All human, all descendants of creatures who had clawed their way to the top of a food chain on a planet that seemed designed to kill them. Humans who had survived ice ages and asteroids, plagues, and wars and still reached for the stars. Contact Earth Command. I want the Thunderchild ready for immediate departure, along with the battle cruisers Sentinel, Defiant, Relentless, Valiant, and Guardian. Full combat loadout. The room erupted into motion. Stone turned to his communications officer. Send a message back along the same frequency. Tell this Ambassador Trell that help is coming. 6 hours later, Stone stood on the bridge of the UES Thunderchild, Earth's most advanced warship. Through the viewport, he watched as 5 battle cruisers moved into formation around his flagship. Each ship bristled with weapon systems that humanity had developed during centuries of fighting each other. Technologies now turned outward to protect rather than destroy. Admiral, said Captain Bell, his second-in-command. Earth Command is on the line. The main screen activated to show the stern face of General Lopez, head of the United Earth Defense Council. Admiral Stone, she said without preamble, the Council has debated your proposed mission. Some members feel we should not involve ourselves in an alien conflict, particularly as our first contact with living extraterrestrials. Stone stood straighter. And your decision, General? Humanity has always defined itself by how it responds to those in need, Lopez said. If we ignore a direct plea for help, what does that say about us as a species? Additionally, she added, with a hint of steel in her voice, if this Void Dominion conquers the Lumari, they may eventually find their way to Earth. Better to meet them on our terms. Stone nodded. My thoughts exactly. You have authorization to proceed, Admiral. Diplomatic authority is granted to establish first contact with both species. Your primary mission is to evaluate the situation and assist the Lumari if possible. If the Void Dominion proves hostile to human interests, you are authorized to take appropriate action. Understood, General. One more thing, Jack, Lopez said, her tone softening slightly. Remember that you carry humanity's flag into the stars, for the first time. Make it one worth following. The screen went dark. Stone turned to his bridge crew, all watching him with a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Navigation, plot a course to the Lumari system, maximum speed. Course plotted, sir. Estimated arrival, 12 hours at full burn. Stone sat in the command chair, feeling the gentle vibration as the Thunderchild's engines powered up. Send a message to all ships, he ordered. All hands to battle stations. We're about to introduce ourselves to the galaxy. As the human fleet vanished into the depths of space, Stone couldn't help but wonder what these aliens would make of them. These strange creatures from a world so dangerous that ancient visitors had marked it with warnings. They were about to find out. Captain Tom Reed adjusted the settings on his stealth suit as the scout ship Sparrow drifted silently toward the Lumari homeworld. The planet below was beautiful, oceans of deep purple and land masses covered in silver-leafed forests that glittered, even from orbit. But the beauty was marred by the dark shapes of Void Dominion warships that hung in the atmosphere like predators circling wounded prey. "Count is up to 120 enemy vessels," whispered Lieutenant Ana Reyes, the team's tactical specialist. Her dark eyes never left the sensor display. "Most are concentrated around the largest city on the northern continent." Reed nodded. His 5-person team had been selected for this reconnaissance mission based on their experience with high-risk infiltrations. Each wore the latest in adaptive camouflage technology, suits that bent light around them and masked heat signatures. "The Admiral wants eyes on the ground before committing the fleet," Reed reminded his team. "Our mission is to make contact with the Lumari leadership and assess the situation. No engagement with enemy forces unless absolutely necessary." The team exchanged glances. They all knew absolutely necessary was subjective when deep in hostile territory. "Approaching drop zone," announced the pilot. "Atmospheric entry in 30 seconds. Reed checked his gear one final time. Standard issue pulse rifle, sidearm, combat knife, emergency beacon, and 6 days of concentrated rations. Humans had learned to pack light but effective. "Remember," he said as the ship began to shudder with entry, "we don't know how either species will react to humans." The Lumari sent a distress call, but they weren't specifically calling us. "Stay alert." The Sparrow slipped through the atmosphere, using a combination of stealth technology and a descent path calculated to appear as nothing more than a small meteor to any watching sensors. They landed in a dense forest 15 kilometers from the Lumari capital, the ship immediately engaging its camouflage systems once grounded. "Air is breathable," Reyes reported after checking her instruments. "Gravity at 0.8 Earth normal. Temperature comparable to a mild spring day." Reed smiled slightly. After training in Earth's varied and often extreme environments, these conditions felt like a vacation. "Move out," he ordered. "Standard formation. Keep comm chatter to a minimum." The team moved through the silver forest with practiced efficiency. To anyone watching, they would have appeared as nothing more than brief distortions in the air, here and then gone, like heat shimmer over hot pavement. They reached the outskirts of the capital within 2 hours. The city was a marvel of crystalline architecture, towers that seemed to grow from the ground rather than being built upon it. But many of those towers now lay shattered, and smoke rose from multiple districts. "Life signs?" Reed asked quietly. "Concentrated in the central district," replied Sergeant Lee, the team's sensor specialist. "2 distinct patterns, probably our 2 alien species. The larger group shows elevated stress markers, consistent with a civilian population under threat." Reed gestured forward and the team slipped into the city through damaged sections of what appeared to be a defense barrier. The streets were mostly empty, with occasional patrols of heavily armored figures that moved with mechanical precision. "Void Dominion troops," Lee whispered. "Cybernetically enhanced, based on these readings." The team avoided the patrols, working their way deeper into the city. They followed the strongest concentration of life signs to what appeared to be a massive underground structure. "Some kind of bunker," Reed observed, studying the entrance. 2 Void soldiers guarded the doors, their armor glistening with an oily sheen under the alien sun. "I can take them out silently," offered Corporal Mason, the team's sniper. Reed considered their options. "No, we need to find another way in. If these guards don't report in, they'll know something's wrong." They circled the building eventually, discovering a maintenance shaft that led below ground. The narrow tunnel forced them to crawl single file for nearly 100 meters before emerging into a dimly lit service corridor. "We're in," Reed reported quietly through his secure comm, linked to the Thunderchild now hiding at the edge of the system. Proceeding to locate Lumari leadership, the team moved through the underground complex, passing rooms filled with what appeared to be civilians, slender, silver-skinned beings with 4 eyes and delicate features. The aliens huddled together in family groups, their expressions unmistakably showing fear despite their alien features. "Central command should be this way," Lee indicated, following the readings on his scanner. They approached a heavily guarded door. Unlike the entrance, this one had 6 Void soldiers stationed outside, all heavily armed. "We need a distraction," Reed decided. He pointed to a junction box on the far wall. Mason, place a pulse charge there. Time it for 30 seconds. Everyone else prepare to move fast. The small charge detonated with a soft whoomp, sending a power surge through the corridor systems. As alarms blared and lights flickered, the guards moved to investigate, and the human team slipped past them through the momentarily unlocked door. Inside was clearly a command center. A dozen silver-skinned aliens worked at control stations, while one stood at a central platform issuing orders. The room fell silent as the humans decloaked, revealing themselves. The Lumari stared in shock. Reed lowered his weapon slowly and removed his helmet, revealing his human face. "Ambassador Trell?" he asked, addressing the alien on the platform. The alien stepped forward cautiously. "I am Trell. You received our message. You are not of any species known to us." "Captain Tom Reed, United Earth Defense Fleet," Reed said clearly. "We received your distress call and came to help." Murmurs spread through the command center. Trell's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. "Earth?" he said, the word clearly unfamiliar on his tongue. "The coordinates from the beacon. You came from the Forbidden World?" Reed nodded. "Some might call it that. We call it home." Before Trell could respond, alarms blared again. A Lumari officer called out in a panicked voice. "Void forces have detected an energy anomaly in the command center. They're sending a capture team." "How many?" Reed asked sharply. 20 soldiers heavily armed," the officer replied, clearly surprised at the humans' calm reaction. Reed turned to his team. "Looks like absolutely necessary just happened. Defensive positions." As the sounds of approaching Void troops echoed from the corridor, Reed faced Trell again. "Ambassador, I suggest you and your people take cover. You're about to see why our world was labeled forbidden." The door exploded inward, and Void soldiers stormed the room, weapons ready. They hesitated for just a moment at the sight of the strange bipedal creatures standing protectively in front of the Lumari. That moment was all the humans needed. Reed moved first, his body functioning with speed and precision impossible on lower gravity worlds. His pulse rifle fired 3 times, each shot finding a gap in the Void soldier's armor. Beside him, his team engaged with similar efficiency, their movements almost too fast for the Lumari to follow. Mason flipped over a console, firing mid-air to take down 2 soldiers. Rhea slid beneath the legs of another, jamming her combat knife into a joint in its armor before rolling away from return fire. Lee and Corporal DeVos worked in tandem, creating crossfire that dropped 4 more enemies in seconds. The Void soldiers fought back with powerful energy weapons, but the humans moved with shocking speed and aggression, dodging or absorbing hits that would have killed most species. Within 40 seconds, the 20-soldier team lay defeated, with only minor injuries, among the humans. In the sudden silence, Ambassador Trell stared at the human team with a mixture of awe and horror. "Now I understand," he whispered. "Why the old ones called yours a world of death. You evolved there, fighting like this." Reed reloaded his weapon calmly. "This is nothing, Ambassador. The real fleet is waiting at the edge of your system. Now, we need to talk quickly about your situation, because the Void Dominion is about to learn what happens when you threaten someone under human protection." Admiral Jack Stone stood on the bridge of the Thunderchild, studying the tactical display with narrowed eyes. Captain Reed's reconnaissance team had uploaded detailed scans of the Void Dominion fleet. 147 warships arranged in a blockade formation around the Lumari homeworld. "Their technology is impressive," commented Commander Bell, pointing to the energy readings. "Those flagship weapons could do serious damage to our shields." Stone nodded. "But their formation is predictable. They've never faced a real challenge." He tapped the display, highlighting the Lumari evacuation ships huddled on the planet's surface. "Our priority is getting those civilians to safety." The bridge crew watched as Stone circled the asteroid belt that surrounded the outer edge of the Lumari system. "And this," he said with a slight smile, "is our advantage." Lieutenant Diaz approached with a communication tablet. "Sir, Ambassador, Trell is ready to speak with you." The main screen flickered to life, showing the silver-skinned alien leader. Behind him, Captain Reed stood at attention. "Ambassador, Stone greeted him. I'm Admiral Stone, commander of this fleet. Trell's 4 eyes blinked in sequence. Admiral, your scout team's actions have already become legend among my people, but I must be honest. The Void Dominion outnumbers your ships many times over. Perhaps it would be better to help us evacuate rather than engage in a hopeless battle. Stone's expression remained calm. Ambassador, with respect, you're thinking like a Lumari. Numbers alone don't decide battles. He outlined his plan. The human fleet would create a diversion, drawing the Dominion forces away from the planet while Lumari evacuation ships escaped through the gap. The civilian ships would rendezvous with human transports waiting behind the system's third moon. But even your remarkable warriors cannot defeat so many warships, Trell protested. We don't need to defeat them all, Stone replied. Just convince them that the cost of victory is too high. As the communication ended, Commander Bell stepped closer to Stone. Sir, the ambassador has a point. 6 ships against 147 are poor odds, even for us. Stone's eyes held a cold gleam that his crew had learned to recognize. The Void Dominion has been hunting easy prey for too long. They've forgotten what it's like to face an opponent who evolved fighting predators. He turned to his weapons. Officer, deploy the Trojan drones to the asteroid belt and prepare the solar lens arrays. Across the human fleet, crews moved with practiced efficiency. Each ship carried technologies refined through centuries of human warfare, now adapted for space combat. The Trojan drones, tiny, nearly undetectable machines that could attach to asteroids and control their trajectory, were quietly seated throughout the belt. On the Void Dominion command ship, Supreme Commander Drax received reports of unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system. Unknown vessels approaching, Commander, reported his second. 6 ships. Configuration unfamiliar. Drax's cybernetic eye glowed as he studied the sensor readings. Only 6? Some foolish allies of the Lumari, no doubt. Hardly worth our attention. Send the 3rd Division to intercept and destroy them. 20. Void warships broke formation, moving toward the human fleet with weapons charged. On the Thunderchild, Stone watched their approach. Right on schedule, he murmured. They're sending a fraction of their force to swat what they think is an annoyance. He straightened in his command chair. All ships, battle formation Delta. Prepare to execute Operation Slingshot on my mark. The human ships spread out in an unusual pattern that confused the Void tacticians. Rather than clustering together for mutual defense, the strategy employed by every other spacefaring species they had encountered, the Earth vessels positioned themselves at seemingly random points. Their formation makes no sense, Drax's tactical officer reported. They appear to be separating. Drax laughed, a harsh mechanical sound. Primitive tactics. They don't even know to concentrate their firepower. Eliminate them quickly. The Void. Ships closed in, firing their main weapons. Brilliant energy beams cut through space toward the human vessels. Mark, said Stone quietly. In perfect synchronization, the human ships activated their engines at full power, executing high-G maneuvers that would have killed most other species without their specialized inertial dampening systems. The Void energy beams missed their targets and the Earth vessels slipped behind the nearest cluster of asteroids. Where did they go? Demanded Drax as the sensor readings became confused. His answer came seconds later as the first wave of asteroids, propelled by the hidden Trojan drones, slammed into the forward section of the Void fleet. 3 enemy ships were destroyed immediately, their shields designed to stop energy weapons, not massive kinetic impacts. Impossible, Drax shouted. They're using the asteroids as weapons. The human fleet emerged from cover, each ship targeting a different Void vessel with precision fire. Unlike the Dominion's overwhelming barrage approach, the human weapons struck at weak points identified by Captain Reed's reconnaissance data. Stone watched as the battle unfolded according to his predictions. Phase 2, he ordered. Deploy. The solar lens. The Thunderchild released a series of reflective panels that unfolded in space, arranging themselves to capture and focus light from the Lumari sun. The improvised weapon suddenly directed an intense beam of concentrated solar radiation at the Void formation. overloading their forward shields and blinding their sensors. In the confusion, the Sentinel and Defiant executed a maneuver that would have been considered suicidal by any other species. They accelerated directly toward the largest Void warships, weapons firing continuously to create a debris field that provided them momentary cover. At the last possible second, they released a payload of magnetically charged mines before executing a high G turn that strained even their advanced inertial systems. The mines attached to the hulls of 6 Void ships before detonating in sequence, creating a chain reaction that rippled through the enemy formation. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Diaz, "the Lumari evacuation ships are taking advantage of the distraction. First wave is away." Stone nodded. "Good. Now for the real fight." He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, execute attack pattern. Thermopylae." The human vessels regrouped with startling speed, forming a tight defensive line between the retreating Lumari ships and the approaching main Void fleet. Drax, enraged by the destruction of his forward division, had ordered all ships to converge on the human interlopers. "Broadcast on all frequencies," Stone commanded. "Let them hear us." His voice echoed across the Void, transmitted to every ship in the system. "Attention Void Dominion forces. This is Admiral Jack Stone of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You have attacked a peaceful civilization and ignored their rights to exist. The Lumari are now under human protection. Withdraw your forces immediately, or face the consequences." On his command ship, Drax received the transmission with rage. "Human? What is a human?" he demanded of his information officer. "Unknown species, Commander. No records in our database." Drax's cybernetic implants pulsed with angry light. "These primitives think 6 ships can stand against our might? Obliterate them." The full force of the Void Dominion fleet moved forward, weapons charging for a simultaneous barrage that would overwhelm any possible defense. "They're not backing down," Bell observed on the Thunderchild's bridge. Stone's expression hardened. "I didn't expect them to. All ships, activate Ragnarok protocols." Throughout the human fleet, hidden weapon systems came online, technologies considered too dangerous for routine use. Prototype gravitational disruptors, antimatter warheads, and quantum entanglement bombs, the products of a species that had spent millennia finding new ways to defeat enemies. As the Void fleet closed in for what they believed would be a quick victory, the true nature of the Deathworlders was about to be revealed. "Let's show them," Stone said quietly. "Why the galaxy fears Earth." The silence in the Void Dominion command ship was broken only by the steady beep of damage control warnings. Supreme Commander Drax stared at the tactical display with his organic eye. The cybernetic one had failed during the battle's 3rd hour. The screen showed a scene he had never imagined possible. The remains of over 60 Void warships drifting in the void, while many others limped away with critical damage. "Status report," he demanded, his voice lacking its usual mechanical confidence. 28 ships destroyed completely, 35 damaged beyond combat capability, 43 with significant systems failure, his second reported, voice trembling. "The human vessels have sustained damage but remain operational. Their weapons technologies are unlike anything in our records." Drax's clawed hand crushed the armrest of his command chair. The battle had been unlike any the Dominion had fought in its centuries of conquest. The humans didn't fight like the other species. They fought like forces of nature. When the Void fleet had closed in for what should have been an overwhelming victory, the human ships had unleashed weapons that defied conventional understanding. Gravitational disruptors had twisted space itself, catching Void ships in pockets of distorted reality where time moved differently. Quantum entanglement bombs had caused enemy ship systems to mirror each other, turning one ship's destruction into a cascading failure across multiple vessels. Most terrifying had been the human boarding parties. When Drax ordered his elite soldiers to capture the damaged Guardian, the humans had met them in zero-gravity combat with a savagery no civilized species possessed. Fighting in vacuum with nothing but combat suits and handheld weapons, the humans had moved with impossible speed and strength. Their bodies evolved on a high-gravity world that made them natural predators in space. Now, the remnants of his once mighty fleet faced 6 damaged but undefeated Earth vessels. The communication system crackled. "Attention Void Dominion Command Ship. This is Admiral Stone. Your fleet is in ruins. Your invasion has failed. I offer you one final chance to retreat with your surviving ships." Drax's advisors looked to him with unmistakable fear in their eyes. Fear not of the enemy, but of his potential response. The Void Dominion did not surrender. It conquered or died. But as Drax stared at the wreckage of his fleet, a new emotion surfaced, one he had never experienced before. "Self-preservation. Plot a retreat course," he ordered quietly. "All surviving ships to follow." His second hesitated, shocked. "Commander, the High Council will—" "The High Council isn't here," Drax snarled. "They didn't see what these Deathworlders are capable of. We retreat, we survive. We warn the Dominion of this new threat." As the Void ships began to disengage, Admiral Stone watched from the Thunderchild's battle-scarred bridge. "They're running," Commander Bell said, disbelief in her voice. "We actually did it." Stone nodded, his face showing the fatigue of the hours-long battle. "Ensure all Lumari evacuation ships are clear. Then set course for the rendezvous point." The human fleet regrouped, moving to escort the civilian vessels that carried the remains of the Lumari civilization. Behind them, the Void Dominion ships vanished into faster-than-light travel, carrying with them tales of the terrifying species from a forbidden world. 3 days later, Admiral Stone stood in a hastily constructed meeting hall on the Lumari colony, world of Haven. Before him were the gathered leaders of the Lumari people, those who had escaped the invasion. Ambassador Trell approached, looking both grateful and somewhat wary. "Admiral," Trell began, his silver skin reflecting the light. "My people owe you a debt we can never repay. You came when no one else would, and you fought with capabilities we find difficult to comprehend." Stone smiled slightly. "We're just glad we could help, Ambassador." Trell's 4 eyes blinked in their curious sequential pattern. "Our historians have been studying the ancient records more carefully since your arrival. The old ones who left the beacon, they visited Earth long ago. They found a world so harsh with such dangerous wildlife and extreme conditions that they believed no intelligent species could evolve there. They underestimated life's adaptability," Stone replied. "When they returned millennia later, they found not only had intelligent life evolved, but it had done so with remarkable speed and aggression." Trell hesitated. "They left warning beacons about Earth calling it a death world, but they also left the emergency beacon, believing that any species that could master such a world would be formidable allies in times of great need." Another, Lumari, stepped forward, this one wearing elaborate robes that marked her as a high official. "Admiral, the Lumari Confederation would like to formally establish relations with Earth. We offer knowledge, technology, and resources in exchange for continued protection." Stone nodded. "I'm authorized to accept on behalf of the United Earth government. We look forward to learning from each other." As the formal meeting concluded, Stone stepped outside the hall where Captain Reed waited with his team. "News travels fast, sir," Reed said, handing him a data tablet. "We're receiving transmissions from 12 different systems. Word of our battle with the Void Dominion has spread." Stone scrolled through the messages, his expression growing serious. "More distress calls. Species under threat from various aggressors." "What are your orders, sir?" Stone looked up at the alien sky, where the Thunderchild and its sister ships orbited protectively. "Humanity spent centuries fighting itself before we reached the stars. Now we have a chance to use those same skills for something better." He handed the tablet back to Reed. "Send word to Earth Command. We need more ships, more personnel. There's a galaxy out there that needs protection." In the weeks that followed, the story of how the Lumari distress call had summoned the Deathworlders became the most discussed topic across known space. Species that had lived in fear of the Void Dominion now whispered of the humans, beings from a world so dangerous that it had forged them into natural warriors. The Void High Council received Commander Drax's report with initial disbelief, then growing concern. Their empire, built on conquering weaker species, had never encountered a civilization evolved for constant struggle. They immediately ordered all forces to avoid Earth vessels and began a massive research effort to understand these new players in the Galactic stage. On Haven, Ambassador Trell watched as human engineers helped rebuild Lumari cities, their two species working side by side despite their differences. He still found the humans physically intimidating, their dense muscles, their endurance, their quick reactions, all testaments to their harsh evolutionary path. But he had also seen their other qualities, their compassion for civilians, their honor in victory, their willingness to sacrifice for strangers. Perhaps, he said to his aide as they observed a human team lifting construction materials that would have required machinery for Lumari, the old ones were both right and wrong about Earth. How so, Ambassador? The aide asked. They correctly identified it as a world of death, where only the strongest could survive. Trell's eyes focused on a human child who had arrived with the Second Fleet, now playing happily with Lumari children, teaching them a game involving catching a ball. But they failed to see that strength, properly directed, becomes protection rather than threat. As more distress calls reached Earth from across the galaxy, humanity found itself facing a new destiny. The species that had once been isolated on their dangerous world were stepping onto a larger stage, not as conquerors but as guardians. The Deathworlders had arrived, and the galaxy would never be the same. The sky over Tarik 3 turned an ominous purple as the planet's sun flared for the third time that week. In the central chamber of the Lumari High Council, Elder Grey's delicate fingers trembled as he studied the projection. The numbers didn't lie. Their once stable star was dying, and much faster than anyone had predicted. There is no other choice, Elder Grey said, his translucent skin pulsing with blue stress patterns. We must activate the beacon. The council chamber erupted in nervous chirps and whistles. The ancient beacon had never been used in living memory. Built by their ancestors during the Great Expansion, it was meant only for the most dire emergencies, a last resort when all other options failed. Counselor Mist rose from her cushioned seat, her long neck bending in the traditional gesture of respectful disagreement. The beacon will reach all corners of the galaxy. What if it attracts the undesirables? We know so little about what exists beyond Coalition space. Would you prefer certain extinction? Asked Elder Grey. Our simulations give us less than 2 planetary cycles before the radiation makes our world uninhabitable. The Coalition may be distant, but they are our only hope. The vote was quick and unanimous. Within hours, technicians had removed the protective seals from the beacon chamber deep beneath the capital city. The device, a relic of a more adventurous time in Lumari history, hummed to life after centuries of dormancy. Message encoded, announced lead technician Dew, his voice soft with both awe and fear. Distress signal will broadcast continuously on all Coalition frequencies. What none of them knew was that the ancient beacon used technologies and frequencies far older than the Coalition itself. As the signal pulsed outward at speeds beyond light, it traveled not just along the carefully regulated communication channels of the known galactic community, but across the full spectrum, including channels monitored by those the Coalition had deemed too dangerous to include in their peaceful alliance. Captain Valerie Stone stretched in her command chair aboard the Earth vessel Horizon. 3 years into their deep space mission, humanity's first true venture beyond their solar system, and the monotony was beginning to wear on even the most dedicated crew members. Another day, another empty sector, muttered Communications Officer Martinez, stifling a yawn. Sometimes I think we're the only intelligent life for 1,000 light years. Careful what you wish for, Stone replied with a half-smile. First, contact protocols are 100 pages long for a reason. The bridge fell silent except for the soft hum of instruments. The Horizon was an impressive vessel by Earth standards, nearly 1 kilometer long, equipped with the best engines and defensive systems humanity could build. Originally designed as a military flagship before being converted to exploration, it carried enough firepower to level a small continent. Not that they expected to use it. But Earth's leaders hadn't survived centuries of warfare by being unprepared. Trikian. Silence broke with a sudden, insistent beeping from Martinez's station. Captain, I'm picking up something. Martinez's fingers flew across his console, eyes widening. It's not random space noise. This is a structured signal, repeating in consistent patterns. Stone was at his station in seconds, fatigue forgotten. Origin? Approximately 40 light-years from our position. The signal appears to be using some form of compression we've never seen before, but the mathematical pattern suggests intelligent design. Martinez looked up, his expression a mixture of excitement and disbelief. Captain, I think we just found what we've been looking for. Lieutenant Commander James Reed, the ship's science officer, joined them at the communication station. Let me see. After studying the pattern for several moments, he straightened. It's definitely artificial, and based on the signal strength and decay pattern, I'd say it's a deliberately broadcast message, not just communication leakage from a civilization. Can we decode it? Stone asked. Reed shook his head. Not without more data, but the repetition suggests it might be some kind of automated message. Possibly. He hesitated. Possibly what, Commander? A distress call, Captain. The mathematical structure shares similarities with our own emergency beacons. Simple, repetitive, designed to attract attention rather than convey complex information. Stone returned to her command chair, mind racing. If this was indeed a distress call from an alien civilization, it would not only be first contact, but first rescue, a scenario no one had prepared for. Martinez, alert Admiral Frost immediately. Reed, I want everything we have on this signal compiled and ready to transmit to Earth. Taylor, she addressed the ship's engineer. I need to know if we can reach the signal's origin with our current fuel reserves. Chief Engineer Taylor ran the calculations twice before answering. Yes, Captain, but it would leave us with minimal reserves for return unless we can refuel somehow. Understood. Stone's decision was already made. Humanity had debated for centuries what their first encounter with alien life might be like. Would it be peaceful? Hostile? Now it seemed they would meet another species not as equals or adversaries, but as rescuers. Set course for the signals, origin, maximum safe speed, and wake the rest of the command staff. They're going to want to hear this. Aboard the Coalition diplomatic vessel, Serene Harmony, signal interpreter pod listened with growing concern to the strange transmission coming from an unknown vessel approaching Sector 87. The Universal Translation Matrix was struggling to decode their communications, but one thing was clear. They were responding to the Lumari distress call, pod connected to the ship's central consciousness. Alert. Unknown species responding to emergency beacon. Vessel configuration and communication patterns do not match any recorded coalition members or known independent worlds. The ship's consciousness processed this information before replying. Scan their world of origin based on trajectory. There was a long pause as pod accessed the coalition's vast database of surveyed star systems. Origin appears to be third planet of a G-type star, designated only by numerical catalog. System was marked for potential future contact but classified as caution advised due to environmental conditions. Explain classification, the ship prompted. Planet exhibits extreme gravity by coalition standards, 1.9 times baseline. Atmosphere contains high oxygen levels. Temperature variations exceed safety parameters for most member species. Surface shows evidence of extensive natural disasters including seismic activity, extreme weather phenomena, and high radiation exposure from nearby star. The ship's consciousness took only milliseconds to reach the disturbing conclusion. Classification update. Deathworld. Species responding to Lumari distress call are Deathworlders. Throughout Coalition space, Deathworlder was not just a classification but a warning. Species that evolved on such harsh planets developed traits considered dangerous: dense musculature, robust skeletal structures, aggressive territorial instincts, and faster neural responses. Their bodies could withstand conditions fatal to most coalition members. Their minds worked with a speed born of constant environmental threats. The last documented encounter with a Deathworld species had ended in tragedy 300 cycles ago, when a peaceful diplomatic mission was misinterpreted as a threat display, resulting in the loss of an entire coalition delegation. Immediate action required, the ship's consciousness decided. Alert the Coalition Council. Divert all available diplomatic vessels to Terrac 3. The Lumari must be warned. But the horizon was moving faster than any coalition vessel could travel. By the time the warning reached the Lumari, the Deathworlders would already be there. And the humans, oblivious to the fear they were about to inspire, continued toward Terrac 3 with a single-minded purpose: to save a species they had never met, no matter the cost. The horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of energy that briefly outshone Terrac 3's unstable sun. On the bridge, Captain Stone leaned forward in her command chair, eyes fixed on the main view screen as the alien world came into focus. "Beautiful," she whispered. Terrac 3 was indeed beautiful, a swirling marble of soft greens and blues, with delicate cloud patterns drifting across its surface. Compared to Earth, it seemed almost fragile. Scans confirm Class M environment, reported Lieutenant West from the science station. Gravity at 0.6 Earth standard. Atmosphere is oxygen-nitrogen with higher concentrations of noble gases than we're used to. Temperature averages 19 degrees Celsius. "A paradise planet," Chief Engineer Taylor remarked. "Paradise with a problem," Stone corrected, gesturing toward the system's sun. Even to the naked eye, the star looked wrong, its surface churning with massive solar storms, areas of its photosphere darkening in patterns that suggested deep instability. "That star is in the early stages of collapse," West confirmed after studying his instruments. "Unusual for its age and type. I'm detecting extreme radiation bursts and evidence of multiple coronal mass ejections in recent weeks." Stone nodded grimly. "Locate the source of the distress signal." "Signal originates from a large settlement on the northern continent," Martinez reported. "I'm also detecting multiple spacecraft in orbit, though none approach our size. No weapons, locks or scanning beams detected. Open a channel," Stone ordered. "Standard first contact greeting, all frequencies." Martinez sent the carefully crafted message, a simple mathematical sequence followed by basic greeting phrases that Earth scientists had long theorized might be universal. Then they waited. The response came quickly, too quickly, suggesting the aliens had been watching them since their arrival. "Captain, I'm receiving a transmission. Audio and visual," Martinez announced, his voice tight with excitement. "The computer is attempting to create a translation matrix based on the mathematical sequences in their response. On screen," Stone ordered, standing to face humanity's first alien contact. The view screen flickered and the bridge crew fell silent. The being that appeared had a vaguely humanoid shape, but the similarities ended there. It was tall and willowy, with 4 long arms and skin that seemed almost translucent, showing hints of a complex circulatory system beneath. Its face featured large almond-shaped eyes without pupils, and it had no visible nose, just small breathing slits. When it spoke, its small mouth barely moved, suggesting most communication happened through other means. "I am Elder Gray of the Lumari High Council," the alien said, the computer rendering its speech with only slight delays. "You have responded to our distress call, for which we are grateful. However, we expected coalition assistance. Your vessel is unfamiliar." Stone stepped forward, keeping her movement slow and deliberate. "I am Captain Valerie Stone of the Earth vessel Horizon. We intercepted your distress signal and came to offer assistance. We are not part of this coalition you mention, but we have the capability and desire to help." The alien's skin rippled, with patterns of color, blue and purple swirls that the humans could only guess were emotional responses. "You are not coalition," Elder Gray stated, the translator failing to capture what seemed like a complex mixture of emotions. "From where do you come?" "We come from Earth, a planet approximately 40 light-years from your position. This is humanity's first contact with another intelligent species." Stone decided on complete honesty. We don't know who or what the coalition is, but we received your distress call and have the means to evacuate your people if necessary. The Lumari leader's skin paled to an almost white shade. You evolved on Earth? The high-gravity world with extreme weather patterns and high oxygen content? Stone blinked in surprise. You know of our planet? It is documented in ancient survey records. Never contacted due to... The alien paused, colors swirling across its skin in rapid patterns. Environmental incompatibility. Commander Reed leaned close to Stone. Captain, I believe they're afraid of us, he whispered. They seem to know Earth is what they'd consider a harsh world. Stone processed this quickly. If these aliens considered Earth's conditions extreme, they might view humans as dangerously powerful by comparison. She needed to reassure them. Elder Grey, we come in peace and with respect for your customs. Our only concern is the safety of your people. Our scans indicate your stars becoming increasingly unstable. The aliens' colors settled into a more uniform pattern. Yes. Our scientists predict complete habitability failure within 2 planetary cycles due to radiation increases. We have begun evacuation preparations, but our ships can only carry a small percentage of our population. The Horizon was originally designed as a military vessel before being converted for exploration, Stone explained. We have capacity for approximately 10,000 passengers in emergency conditions, and our hull can withstand solar radiation far beyond what your sun is currently producing. The alien leader's colors shifted again. You would take our people aboard your vessel? Yes, and I've already requested additional ships from Earth. They should arrive within 3 standard weeks. A new color pattern rippled across Elder Grey's skin, something like gold mixed with green. This is most unexpected. We must discuss this offer. Would you and a small delegation consider coming to the surface to meet with our council? We would like to learn more about your capabilities. Stone smiled. We would be honored. 6 hours later, Commander Reed led the first human landing party to the surface of Terrac 3. The team consisted of Reed, Lieutenant West, Dr. Patel from Medical, and 2 security officers, Jones and Miller. All wore standard environmental suits despite scans showing the atmosphere was breathable, a precaution for both sides of this first meeting. The Lumari landing pad was a circular platform made of a crystal-like material that sparkled in the planet's soft light. A delegation of 5 Lumari waited, their slender bodies draped in flowing garments that seemed to change color with the breeze. Reed was the first to remove his helmet after atmospheric checks confirmed it was safe. He took a deep breath of alien air, noting its sweetness and lower density compared to Earth's atmosphere. It feels like we're at high altitude, he told his team through their comms. Move carefully until you adjust to the gravity. The warning proved necessary. As the humans took their first steps toward the Lumari delegation, they discovered that the planet's lower gravity made their movements unexpectedly bouncy. What would have been normal steps on Earth sent them almost floating forward. The Lumari watched with visible alarm as the humans struggled to control their movements. To the aliens, the humans appeared to be moving with unnatural power and speed, even though the Earth team was trying to be cautious. Greetings, Reed said when they finally stood before the aliens, careful to maintain what he hoped was a respectful distance. Thank you for welcoming us to your world. The lead Lumari, introduced as Counselor Mist, performed a graceful gesture with all 4 arms. Welcome, humans. We are grateful for your offer of assistance, though we must admit, your physical form is surprising. Dr. Patel, always direct, asked, In what way, Counselor? Mist's skin flickered with blue patterns. You move with great force. Your bodies appear extremely dense. Even through your protective coverings, we can see your substantial musculature. Are all humans so solid? Reed exchanged glances with West. It hadn't occurred to them that their normal human bodies might appear intimidating to these delicate aliens. By Earth standards, we're actually quite average, Reed explained. Our planet's higher gravity requires stronger bodies. The conversation was interrupted by a sudden tremor that shook the landing pad. The humans barely noticed it, but the Lumari immediately spread their arms for balance, their skin flashing with alarm patterns. Solar flare consequences. Counselor Mist explained once the tremor passed. The radiation affects our magnetic field, causing geological instability. As if to punctuate this statement, an urgent communication came through on Mist's translator device. The Lumari's colors drained to pale white as she listened. "There is an emergency," she told the humans. "A habitation dome in the southern district has experienced structural failure due to the tremor. Many are trapped." Without hesitation, Lieutenant West activated her comm. "West to Horizon. We need emergency response teams and equipment at our location immediately. Building collapse with civilians trapped." Captain Stone's voice came back instantly. "Understood. Rescue team is suiting up now. ETA 5 minutes." The Lumari watched this exchange with a mixture of confusion and hope. "Your people can help?" Mist asked. Reed nodded. "Rescue operations in unstable conditions are something humans have unfortunately had much practice with on our world. If your people will guide us, we can help." As the words left his mouth, a massive human shuttle broke through the clouds above, descending toward their position at a speed that made the Lumari counselors back away in alarm. Within minutes, 20 human rescue workers in heavy-duty exoskeletons were unloading equipment and organizing into teams. Counselor Mist stared at the humans in their powered suits, her skin cycling through colors the translation matrix couldn't interpret. "Now you see," she whispered to Elder Gray, who had just arrived. "They are." The collapsed habitation dome looked like a fallen crystal flower, its once beautiful transparent sections now shattered across the landscape. Lumari rescue workers moved cautiously through the debris, their slender bodies struggling to lift even small sections of the structure. In stark contrast, the human rescue team tore through the wreckage with startling efficiency. Their powered exoskeletons amplified their already considerable strength, allowing them to lift massive support beams that would have required 10 Lumari working together. Even without the suits, the humans moved with a speed and sureness that seemed impossible to the watching aliens. Lieutenant West coordinated from a makeshift command post, directing teams based on thermal scans that showed where survivors might be trapped. "Team 3, I'm picking up life signs 20 meters northeast of your position, at least 5 individuals." "Copy that," responded Jones, leading a group of 4 humans in exoskeletons. They moved toward the signal, carefully lifting and shifting debris. Even being gentle, their movements seemed brutally powerful to the Lumari. Observers, Elder Gray stood beside West, his skin shifting between pale blue and yellow as he watched the humans work. "Your people move as if the weight means nothing," he observed. West smiled. "The exoskeletons help, but even without them, this gravity feels very light to us. On Earth, everything weighs nearly twice as much as it does here." A sudden cry from one of the human teams drew their attention. "We've found them. 5 survivors trapped in a pocket beneath the main support arch." The problem became immediately apparent. The survivors were in a space too small for the bulky exoskeletons to enter, and removing the wrong piece could cause a secondary collapse. Without hesitation, Miller, a compact woman from the security team, began removing her exoskeleton. "I can fit through that gap," she said, pointing to a narrow opening. "Just need to stabilize that arch first. Too dangerous without support," her team leader argued. Miller shook her head. "These people don't have time for us to find another way in. Besides, in this gravity, I can handle it." Before anyone could stop her, Miller had slipped through the opening with a medical kit and communications device. The Lumari watched in stunned silence as the human disappeared into a space they would have considered a death trap. 10 minutes later, Miller emerged with the first survivor, a young Lumari, whose colors were faded to near white from shock. Over the next hour, she brought out all 5 survivors, making the dangerous trip back and forth without complaint. Elder Gray's skin rippled with deep gold, a sign of profound respect, West had learned. "Your people risk themselves for strangers," he said quietly. "It's what we do," West replied simply. As the rescue operation continued, Captain Stone received an urgent communication from the horizon. "Captain, Martinez reported, his voice tense. We're detecting multiple ships entering the system. Configuration unknown, but they're moving in a tight formation directly toward Terrac 3. Stone frowned. Coalition vessels? Likely, based on Elder Gray's descriptions. Their technology signatures are different from anything in our database. 7 vessels total, the largest approximately 1/3 our size. Stone considered this information. No hostile actions yet? No, Captain. But they're broadcasting wide-spectrum communications that our systems can't fully decode. Seems to be directed at the Lumari. Understood. Alert our ground teams and maintain defensive readiness. Let's not appear threatening, but be prepared for anything. Within hours, the Coalition fleet had established orbit around Terrac 3, positioning themselves between the horizon and the planet in what Stone recognized as a classic blockade formation. A communication request came through almost immediately. The being that appeared on the view screen was unlike the Lumari, more solid, with a hard exoskeleton and compound eyes that reminded Stone of Earth insects. It wore what appeared to be a ceremonial garment with complex patterns etched into its shell. I am Ambassador Blue of the Galactic Coalition, the alien stated, its translated voice carrying a distinct tone of authority. You have entered Coalition-protected space without authorization. Identify yourselves and state your purpose. Stone straightened in her chair. I am Captain Valerie Stone of the Earth vessel Horizon. We responded to a distress call from the Lumari people. We're here on a humanitarian mission. The ambassador's antennae twitched. Earth is not a registered Coalition world. Your presence here violates Protocol 87B regarding contact with developing species. You will withdraw immediately. Stone felt her temper rise but kept her expression neutral. With respect, Ambassador, the Lumari face extinction if they aren't evacuated soon. Their star is destabilizing at an accelerating rate. The Coalition is aware of the Lumari situation, Blue responded coldly. Appropriate measures are being implemented according to established protocols. And when were these measures scheduled? To arrive? Stone pressed. The ambassador's compound eyes flickered. That is not your concern. Coalition policy for species classified from high-gravity worlds is clear. You pose an unacceptable risk to the Lumari and other peaceful species. High-gravity worlds? Stone repeated. You mean what the Lumari called Deathworlds? That is the common term, yes. Species from such environments develop concerning physical and psychological traits. Your interference is not welcome. You will depart from this system within 1 standard rotation. The communication ended abruptly, leaving Stone staring at a blank screen. Well, said Commander Reed, who had returned to the ship for the meeting, that was diplomatic. Stone turned to him. What's your assessment of the Lumari situation? Reed's expression was grim. Their evacuation plans are wholly inadequate. Their ships are designed for research and trade, not mass transport. At their current capacity, they could save maybe 15% of their population before the radiation reaches lethal levels. And how long before that happens? Based on our scans and their data, I'd say 6 weeks at most. Their scientists originally estimated 2 planetary cycles, about 8 Earth months, but the stellar degradation is accelerating faster than they predicted. Stone nodded slowly. And the Coalition? Did Elder Gray mention when they expected help to arrive? That's the thing, Captain, Reed said, his voice tight with controlled anger. I accessed their communication logs with Coalition headquarters. The Lumari sent their first distress call 3 months ago. The Coalition acknowledged but classified it as Situation Level 3. Non-immediate response required. 3 months, Stone repeated. And when was assistance scheduled? The first Coalition evacuation vessels weren't due to arrive for another 4 months. The implication hung in the air. By then, most of the Lumari would be dead. Martinez, Stone called to her communications officer, get me Elder Gray, and then open a channel to Earth. We need those additional ships here as soon as possible. The Coalition won't like that, Reed warned. Stone's expression hardened. The Coalition was going to let these people die while following their precious protocols. I don't much care what they like. On the planet's surface, Elder Gray met with Ambassador Blue in the High Council chamber. The Coalition representative's hard exoskeleton clicked against the crystal floor as he paced in obvious agitation. These humans are classified as a Deathworld species for good reason, Blue insisted. Their physical capabilities alone make them dangerous. Did you see how they move? How they tear through structures with their bare hands? Their bodies are evolved for violence. I saw them save 53 lives today, Elder Grey countered, his skin pulsing with determined purple. Lives that would have been lost waiting for Coalition assistance. That is unfortunate, but protocols exist for a reason. Deathworlders are unpredictable. Their neural responses are too rapid, their decision-making too impulsive. History has shown. History, interrupted Elder Grey, is not our current concern. Survival is. The humans have offered immediate evacuation for our people. Their ships can withstand the radiation that will soon make our world uninhabitable. Ambassador Blue's antennae flattened against his head. And what guarantee do you have that once your people are aboard their vessels, they won't simply take you as specimens, or worse? Before Elder Grey could respond, the chamber doors opened, and Captain Stone entered with Lieutenant West. They moved with the careful, measured pace they had adopted, since realizing how their natural movements disturbed the Lumari. Excuse the interruption, Stone said, nodding respectfully to Elder Grey before turning to Ambassador Blue. I thought it might be helpful if we discussed our intentions directly. This is a closed council meeting, Blue said sharply. Your presence is inappropriate. Stone smiled thinly. So is leaving a civilization to die when you have the means to save them. The chamber fell silent. Even Elder Grey's skin went still with shock at the human's directness. Captain Stone, Elder Grey said carefully. Ambassador Blue was explaining Coalition protocols regarding species from worlds like yours. Yes, I've been informed we're considered Deathworlders, Stone replied. An interesting classification. On Earth, we just call it home. Ambassador Blue's compound eyes fixed on Stone. Your kind evolved in conditions that forge aggressive, dangerous traits, high gravity creating dense muscle tissue, extreme weather patterns selecting for rapid threat assessment, constant exposure to Natu. The scientists had been wrong, not by months or weeks, but by days. Chief Engineer Taylor stood on the Horizon's observation deck, watching the massive solar flare unfold across the view screen. The angry red mass ejected from Terak's star stretched millions of kilometers into space, its leading edge already accelerating toward the planet. How long? Captain Stone asked, her voice tight. Taylor checked the calculations again. 18 hours until it hits the planet, maybe 20 until radiation levels become lethal for the Lumari. Stone's expression didn't change, but her hands clenched at her sides. And the evacuation? At current rates, we've moved about 30% of the population to the ships. The Coalition vessels took another 5%. After their confrontation, Ambassador Blue had reluctantly ordered Coalition ships to begin limited evacuation efforts, though they focused primarily on Lumari cultural leaders and scientific experts, a decision that had caused further tension with the humans who insisted on evacuating everyone equally. We need more time, Stone said. She turned to Commander Reed. Options? Reed had been working with Lumari scientists since the humans' arrival. We've been developing radiation shields based on a combination of our technology and theirs. They can't stop the radiation completely, but they might buy us another day or two if deployed in orbit. Do it, Stone ordered without hesitation. And contact the Coalition ships. We need to coordinate our efforts. Reed nodded, though his expression suggested he doubted the Coalition would cooperate. He was right. Absolutely not, Ambassador Blue declared when presented with the plan. The proposed shield design has not been approved by Coalition safety protocols. The risk of technological contamination is too great. With respect, Ambassador, Reed argued, without these shields, hundreds of thousands of Lumari will die before we can evacuate them. The ambassador's compound eyes flickered. Then, accelerate your evacuation efforts. We're already working at maximum capacity, Reed countered. Our ships have been running continuous transport cycles for days. Then the outcome, while regrettable, is unavoidable according to Coalition risk assessment parameters. Reed stared at the alien diplomat, finally understanding. You're afraid of our technology. Blue's antennae twitched. Deathworlder technology is often unpredictable, designed for conditions and purposes that peaceful species find concerning. It's designed to save lives, Reed said firmly, which is exactly what we're going to use it for. He left without waiting for a response, knowing that Stone would proceed with or without Coalition approval. Time was running out. On the surface of Terrak 3, the sky had taken on an ominous reddish tint. The Lumari moved with increasing urgency, their normally graceful movements giving way to something closer to panic as they gathered at the evacuation points established around the major population centers. Lieutenant West coordinated the largest evacuation site, working alongside Elder Gray. Next group, boarding shuttle 7, she called through her translator. Please maintain single-file approach. The Lumari followed her instructions, their skin showing patterns of fear mixed with determination. After days of working with the humans, many had overcome their initial terror of these powerful aliens. Some even displayed color patterns that West had learned to recognize as gratitude or respect when humans passed. Elder Gray approached her station. Lieutenant, we have received reports that the radiation front will arrive sooner than expected. West nodded grimly. We know. Our ships are deploying radiation shields in orbit now, but we need to move faster. She looked at the lines of waiting Lumari stretching into the distance. There are still too many. Gray's skin pulsed with a complex pattern. The Coalition representatives have implied that not all will be saved. They are selecting individuals, based on their value to rebuilding our civilization elsewhere. West felt a surge of anger but kept her voice steady. That's not how we do things. We don't decide who lives and who dies. A Deathworlder perspective, Gray noted, but his colors suggested admiration rather than criticism. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden tremor that shook the ground violently, far stronger than previous quakes. West instinctively grabbed Elder Gray to steady him, her human strength easily keeping the fragile alien upright while around them, many Lumari fell. What was that? West asked as the shaking subsided. Gray's skin had paled to almost white. The magnetic field. It must be failing faster than predicted. West activated her communicator. West to Horizon. The situation is deteriorating down here. We need more shuttles. Captain Stone's voice came back, tense but controlled. All available vessels are already deployed, Lieutenant. The radiation shields are online, but they're not as effective as we hoped. And we have another problem. What kind of problem? The Coalition ships. Their shielding isn't designed for this level of radiation. 3 of their vessels are already reporting system failures. West looked up at the sky, where the faint shimmer of the deployed radiation shields was just visible. Beyond them, she knew both human and Coalition ships orbited, racing against time to save as many Lumari as possible. Understood, she replied. We'll keep moving people as fast as we can. She turned to Elder Gray. We need to prioritize children and those who can't move quickly on their own. Gray nodded, his skin showing bands of determined blue. I will organize it. As he moved away, West's communicator activated again. West, came the voice of Engineer. Taylor, I need your help. The Coalition ships are in trouble. In orbit around Terrak 3, chaos reigned. The radiation shields had slowed the advance of the deadly particles, but they couldn't stop them completely. The massive solar flare had split into multiple fronts, some slipping past the shields to bathe the ships in radiation. The human vessels, designed for the harsh conditions of Earth's space, weathered the storm with minimal damage. Their hulls, reinforced to withstand micrometeoroid impacts and cosmic radiation, far exceeding what most galactic species considered normal, held firm. The Coalition ships were not so fortunate. Their systems are failing across the board, Taylor explained to Captain Stone on the Horizon's bridge. Their radiation shielding was designed for standard background levels, not this kind of solar event. Stone looked at the tactical display, showing the 7 Coalition vessels. 2 were already drifting out of position, their propulsion systems offline. How many Lumari aboard? Approximately 15,000 based on their reported capacity. Stone didn't hesitate. Position our ships to protect them. Use the horizon as the primary shield for their flagship. The order went out, and the human vessels moved into a defensive formation, deliberately placing themselves in the path of the incoming radiation to shield the vulnerable Coalition ships. On the bridge of the Coalition flagship, Ambassador Blue watched in disbelief as the massive human vessels maneuvered around them, creating a protective barrier. They're sacrificing their defensive position to protect us, his second-in-command observed, mandibles clicking in surprise. Blue's compound eyes focused on the horizon as it took position directly between his ship and the solar storm. It makes no tactical sense. Their vessels will sustain damage. Perhaps, his officer suggested carefully. Their tactical considerations are different from ours. Before Blue could respond, a communication came through. It was Captain Stone. Ambassador, we've positioned our ships to intercept the worst of the radiation. Your vessels should remain operational if you stay within our shield perimeter. Blue's antenna twitched with conflicting emotions. This is unexpected, Captain Stone. Our analysis suggested humans would prioritize their own survival. Stone's expression remained calm. Then your analysis was wrong. We need a favor in return. What favor? Blue asked suspiciously. Engineer Taylor has developed a way to boost your ship's shields using our technology. It requires direct installation on your vessels. Will you allow our teams aboard? Blue hesitated. Coalition protocols strictly forbade allowing Deathworlders onto their ships. The risk was deemed unacceptable, and yet, without functioning shields, his vessels, and the Lumari aboard them, would not survive. Time is critical, Ambassador, Stone pressed. The main radiation front will hit in less than 4 hours. After a moment that seemed to stretch endlessly, Blue made his decision. Permission granted, Captain. Send your teams. Lieutenant West found herself on a Coalition vessel, working alongside Engineer Taylor and a team of human technicians. The Coalition crew watched them nervously, keeping their distance from the Deathworlders who moved with such alarming speed and strength. The connection needs to be precise, Taylor explained as she worked on integrating human shield technology with the Coalition systems. Their power distribution is completely different from ours. West held a component steady while Taylor made the adjustments. The radiation levels in this section of the ship were already rising, seeping through the failing shields. Their environmental suits provided protection, but the indicators were flashing warnings. Radiation exceeding safe parameters, West noted, checking her suit's display. Taylor nodded without looking up from her work. I know. We've got about 20 minutes before we need to rotate out. One of the Coalition crew approached cautiously. Our sensors indicate the radiation in this section has reached levels that are lethal to organic. The observation deck of the horizon was crowded with both humans and Lumari as they watched Terak 3 through the massive viewports. The planet that had once been a jewel of blue and green now glowed an angry red, its atmosphere ionized by the solar storm. Instruments recorded radiation levels that would kill any unprotected Lumari within minutes. Elder Gray stood beside Captain Stone, his skin a subdued pattern of blue and gray. Our home for 10,000 generations, he said quietly. Gone in a single day. Stone placed a gentle hand on the alien's shoulder, careful to keep her touch light. After weeks of working together, the Lumari had grown more comfortable with human contact, but their fragile bodies still required careful handling. Not gone, she corrected. Changed. Someday when the star stabilizes, it might be habitable again. Gray's skin rippled with what Stone had learned was the expression of sad acknowledgement. Perhaps, but not in our lifetime. The final evacuation. Shuttles had returned to the fleet just hours before the main radiation front hit the planet. Working together, the human and Coalition ships had accomplished what had seemed impossible, evacuating nearly the entire Lumari population of 4.7 million individuals. Only a few hundred had been lost in accidents or to the early effects of radiation. The Coalition fleet, their systems now stabilized thanks to human technology, held position alongside the Earth vessels. Ambassador Blue had requested a meeting with Captain Stone and Elder Gray to discuss the future of the Lumari people. That meeting was scheduled to begin in 1 hour. "Are you ready?" Stone asked Gray. The alien's colors shifted to a more determined pattern. "Yes. The Council has discussed our options extensively. We know what we want." Stone nodded. "Then let's make sure you get it." The conference room aboard the Horizon had been adjusted to accommodate both Lumari and Coalition representatives. The gravity was set to 0.7 Earth standard, a compromise that allowed the Lumari to move comfortably while not being too disorienting for the humans. Ambassador Blue entered with 2 other Coalition representatives. Their hard exoskeletons clicked against the floor as they took their assigned positions. Captain Stone noted that they moved with less obvious tension than during their first meetings, their antennae held in neutral positions rather than the alert, aggressive stance they had initially displayed around humans. Elder Gray led the Lumari delegation, accompanied by Counselor Mist and 3 other council members. Their skin patterns showed a mix of emotions: grief for their lost world, anxiety about their future, but also determination. Stone took her place at the head of the table, with Commander Reed and Lieutenant West flanking her. The atmosphere was solemn but no longer hostile. "Thank you all for coming," Stone began. "We're here to discuss the future of the Lumari people. Ambassador Blue, I believe you have a proposal from the Coalition?" Blue's antennae dipped in a gesture of acknowledgement. "Yes. The Coalition Council has authorized me to offer the Lumari people refugee status within Coalition space. We have identified 3 potential worlds that could accommodate your biology and culture." "Under what conditions?" Elder Gray asked. Directly, Blue's compound eyes flickered. "Standard refugee protocols would apply. The Lumari would be granted temporary settlement rights for a period of 50 standard cycles, with renewal subject to Coalition review. Cultural integration programs would be mandatory, and population growth would be regulated to ensure sustainable resource management." Gray's skin flashed with patches of red, a sign of displeasure that Stone had learned to recognize. "And governance? A Coalition administrator would oversee the settlement, with a Lumari advisory council providing cultural guidance." The room fell silent as the Lumari delegation exchanged glances, their skin patterns communicating in ways the translation devices couldn't capture. Finally, Elder Gray spoke. "Ambassador, we appreciate the Coalition's offer. However, we find these terms restrictive. The Lumari have been a sovereign people for thousands of generations. To become regulated refugees would be a profound loss on top of losing our homeworld." Blue's mandibles clicked. "The terms are standard for all species requiring Coalition assistance. Without the Coalition's protection and resources, your people would face significant challenges." Stone cleared her throat. "If I may, Ambassador, the Lumari have another option." All eyes turned to her. "Earth has authorized me to offer the Lumari a different arrangement. We have identified a habitable planet at the edge of what we consider our territory. It's approximately 30 light-years from Earth, uninhabited, and with environmental conditions very similar to Terrac 3. She activated a holographic display showing a beautiful blue-green world with 2 small moons. "We call it Novus. Our surveys indicate it could support the entire Lumari population with minimal terraforming. Earth offers this world to the Lumari people, with full sovereignty and self-governance. We ask only for mutual defense and trade agreements." Ambassador Blue's antennae shot up in alarm. "Captain Stone, this is highly irregular. The Lumari have no experience with Deathworlder species or their expectations. Such an arrangement could put them at significant risk." Stone kept her voice calm. "The Lumari have worked alongside humans for weeks now, Ambassador. They've seen us at our best and our worst. I believe they're capable of deciding for themselves what risks they're willing to take." Blue turned to Elder Gray. "The humans are offering you a world, yes, but consider carefully what that means. Their biology, their instincts, their very way of thinking is fundamentally different from yours. What seems like generosity may have unseen consequences." Gray's skin rippled with thoughtful patterns. "We have considered this, Ambassador. We have also considered that when our distress call went out, it was the humans who came immediately to our aid, while the Coalition classified our extinction as a non-priority situation. Blue's exoskeleton rattled slightly, a sign of discomfort. That was an unfortunate bureaucratic error. The Coalition values all sentient life. Perhaps, Gray replied, his colors shifting to a steady, determined blue. But we have made our decision. The Lumari High Council votes unanimously to accept Earth's offer. The Coalition representatives exchanged alarmed glances. This is most irregular, Blue insisted. At minimum, a transition period under Coalition supervision would be unnecessary, Gray interrupted, his normally gentle voice firm. Our people have chosen. Stone watched the exchange with carefully controlled satisfaction. The Lumari, despite their physically fragile nature, had shown remarkable strength of will throughout the crisis. She respected that. Then it's settled, she said. The human fleet will escort the Lumari to Novus. We've already dispatched construction vessels with supplies and equipment to help establish initial settlements. Ambassador Blue's compound eyes fixed on Stone. Captain, I must warn you that the Coalition Council will not look favorably on this development. Establishing direct relations with a pre-coalition species violates numerous protocols. Stone met his gaze steadily. With respect, Ambassador, the Lumari are no longer a pre-coalition species. They're now Earth allies. For a moment, tension filled the room. Then, surprisingly, Blue's antennae relaxed. So they are. I will report this development to the Council. They will not be pleased, but he paused, his mandibles moving in what might have been the Coalition equivalent of a resigned sigh. Recent events have demonstrated that perhaps some protocols deserve reconsideration. He turned to Elder Gray. The Coalition wishes the Lumari people well in their new home. Should you ever require assistance, we will answer. Gray's skin rippled with golden appreciation. Thank you, Ambassador. We hope this marks the beginning of a new understanding between all our peoples. 1 month later, the human Lumari fleet approached Novus. The journey had been long but uneventful, with the Lumari adapting to life aboard the ships with remarkable resilience. Cultural exchange programs had flourished, with humans learning Lumari color pattern communication, while the Lumari studied human history and social structures. On the Horizon's bridge, Captain Stone and Elder Gray watched as the beautiful blue-green world grew larger on the viewscreen. It looks like home, Gray said softly, his skin glowing with hopeful patterns. Stone smiled. It will be soon enough. Her communications officer interrupted. Captain, I'm receiving multiple transmissions from unexpected sources. They're coming in on the same frequency as the original Lumari distress call. Stone frowned. Source? At least 3 different systems, Captain. All outside. Coalition space. Elder Gray's skin flickered with surprise. Other species using our emergency frequency? The communications officer looked up from his station. The messages are all similar, Captain. They're distress calls, asking specifically for human assistance. Stone and Gray exchanged looks. It seems, Gray said, his skin rippling with what Stone now recognized as humor, that word has spread about the Deathworlders who actually come when called. Stone laughed softly. Well, we can hardly ignore people in need, can we? No, Gray agreed, his color shifting to a determined pattern that looked remarkably similar to the expression on Stone's face. We cannot. Stone turned to her helm officer. Once the Lumari are safely established on Novus, set course for the nearest distress call. Let's see who else needs help out there. As the Horizon moved into orbit around the Lumari's new HFY